I think the missing link is that one, the indigenous part uh, needs to really be, I guess, combined. Don't overlook it
Mm-hmm.
just because when you think Indian or you think indigenous
Mm-hmm.
or whatever term you want, that it has to be this idea or this photograph.
Right.
Indigenous is indigenous to the community,
Yes.
regardless of your color. And I think once we say that we're indigenous or we're part of that indigenous group, that somehow we're saying we're not black,
Hmm.
but that's not what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're in Nacimiento, Mexico, when we're in Mexico, if we're saying you were born in Mexico, somehow I'm not black.
Right.
Like,
It's not true.
that's no, it's not true.
Yeah.
So those cultures and those communities that we're a part of needs to be more, talked about,
Mm-hmm.
because we're if you keep just saying black, that's one dimensional, and we're not. We're very layered. We're
Mm-hmm.
very complex people,
Mm-hmm.
and have so many different aspects in our culture that were significant. But if you just lay on to just one part, black, black,
Mm-hmm.
then you're losing everything that to me is makes our community and our culture special.
Yes.
This letter is from John Horse. He wrote to the uh, government in 1874. He says to General Aguilar, "Sir, you are the head here, and the father and the mother to us Seminoles. I came here this day to see you in behalf of my people, and I hope that what I ask here in writing you will please grant us. I am born in Florida. My people were taken from there and brought to Arkansas. Everything was taken away from us when we left Florida: houses, cattle, horses, etc. Everything what we had, and the government pledged itself at that time to pay us for all the losses, that we should get land for a home and be furnished with everything for 8 years. This was in President Polk's time. And since that time, we have been roaming about without a home, and nothing has been done for us. And we now ask the government to give us a home for the sake of our children, that they may learn something and get schooling, where we can believe in God and we can love each other." And that's just the first paragraph. And this letter, like I said, is in the National Archives. And that first paragraph summarizes everything that we have been doing our entire lives, that they were looking for, and what was taken, what was promised, and what still is owed.
Good people, thank you guys again, man, for tapping in. I'm blessed to be your host, Caleb Smith. Today we have a very special guest in the building. Shout out to my man, Chief Sekou, for coordinating this. Miss Denys, she is a direct descendant of John Horse's sister, Wannah. So today we're going to have a great conversation with the family, a real conversation about the true history. Right now, John Horse is a name that's somewhat trending online. And, you see different accounts, different stories, but not directly from the source. So before we start this conversation, I want to deeply say thank you to Miss Denys for being open to share her family's story. Chief Sekou, again, for coordinating this as well. Miss Denys, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good.
Starting off, how do you feel from seeing so many stories about John Horse? And I know most of them are probably inaccurate.
Inaccurate.
From seeing these accounts, how does that make you feel from seeing other people tell his story?
Uh, Twofold.
Mm.
I'm happy that the story is getting more
Mm-hmm.
national attention, but at the same time, the misinformation or the inaccuracies are getting more prevalent. So
Mm.
I feeling like there's a need for the family to come out and tell the true story of us,
Mm-hmm.
and let people know that, one, we are the experts in our history,
Yes, ma'am.
and to let people know our truth,
Yes, ma'am.
what it is for us.
For sure. What do you think makes John Horse's legacy so significant when it comes to when they try to number the Black Indigenous Americans as well, and then for Black history as a whole? What do you think makes him so impactful?
The most impactful thing that I think people are amazed of it is that one, I guess, is the freedom that we were successful of maintaining our freedom. And I think the code word or the buzzword is it's Black. It has to be Black.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we've won something against the oppressor. And as good as that may be, buzzwords, it's much more significant than that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's deeper than that. Maintaining your freedom and the number of people who've done that is the most important part, because boiling it down to one person name is to me, in my opinion, insignificant, because the sheer amount of people that fought against the sheer amount of people that were, resisting, it was the key. And I think every person's name needs to be heard and told and remembered. And of course, John Horse is, like I say, it's my uncle, but he didn't do it alone.
That's right.
We are a village. We did it as a one. And I think that's the most important thing to remember when you're talking about us as a people. We're a people.
Yes, ma'am.
We're not a person.
That's right.
And so,
Wannah, who was Wannah? What role did she serve in John Horse's life?
Wannah is his older sister that we know of. Now, there may be additional siblings, but in records, there is no document to that. And because of the trauma and the movements, the migration, you really don't get a sense to see if they had additional siblings. But Wannah in particular was instrumental, because she and her, alongside her brother, maintained that freedom because of the family, family unit that they shared. Her children, her husband, and at their time, he had maybe additional children. We don't know. That is not a proven fact. For us to get to that fact, the family is actively trying to prove that or validate that through DNA is our only tool now, because we can't do it through documents. And so with her being vulnerable as a woman, but as a mother of children, I think he being the younger brother felt a need to protect her as much as the people.
Right.
And so they worked together because their family needed to be protected.
Yes, ma'am. Growing up, what were those oral traditions, if you will, of John Horse and Wannah? What would you hear of the stories?
Well, interesting enough, you heard more about the Scouts than you heard about the John Horse and Wannah and Wildcat and them. And I'm going to give you a little history about the Scouts.
Please.
So the Seminole Negro Indian Scouts were a group of the United States Army, regiment that they brought on in Texas when they had the Texas Wars in the 1800s. 1870 is when they came on to be Scouts, when they enlisted. Now, they were recruited because of their fighting abilities, not just against Indians, but in general, of any enemy. Our fighting abilities were superior, and that's why they recruited us, because we could help that. And so 1870 is when they were recruited, and once that happened, the history from them became the most notable part in our history. Okay. So it's almost like that was the beginning.
Wow.
And today in Texas, in Brackettville, Texas, we still have our annual Seminole Days in September that we celebrate, but it's mainly geared toward the Indian Scouts. Now, it's interesting because that, growing up, knowing that part, feeling like that is the beginning, is kind of awkward when you say that's not the beginning of our history. I mean, like, go further. You know,
Right.
1800s, 1870 is a great start, but keep going, peel them layers. And once you do that, once you go, wait a minute, we were in Oklahoma, we're in Mexico,
That's right.
we're in Florida, and the family is like, what do you mean? We can't get past that 1870 mark.
That's right.
And once you start getting into why we were in Mexico, because my father is from Nacimiento, Mexico,
Wow.
and why we are Muskogos,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep asking that why, that picture just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we get to Wannah, right?
Mhm.
So our stories for us and the family was so interesting because we falsely believed that there were no. My last name is Vasquez, so the Vasquez line in Nacimiento. We falsely believed that we didn't have any ties to the scouts because of that last name. There's no scout named Vasquez. There's 150 men, no last name is Vasquez, until I started doing the research. And then I found that our uncle is on there, and his name is Santan Volkes is on there, Voskes. So, but it's actually Santana Vasquez,
Wow.
and nobody in the family realized that it was him, and this name had a connection. And then I said, wait a minute, Dad, we need to put this out to the family. We need to make sure that our whole family understands what's going on here. And then when I found him, I said, we need to do all of our lines because your family line, every person matters. And once I heard that quote from Maya Angelou, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000.
That's right.
That's so powerful. And so when I started going up the tree and started seeing all these different people and the different things that they've done, it made me think, okay, we need not just me and our family to know, our whole community needs to know.
That's right.
Each individual person had a life. They had a history. They had a whole significant role in our community. And how come we don't know it?
That's right. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Right now, Mr. Denys, on TikTok, it's this trending topic, right, of so-called Black people being homed and living in Mexico, having a long family history, hearing about your story as well. What led to that trail or that pathway to Mexico?
Well, if you read the books, you'll get a sense. But the main thing that led to Mexico was to maintain our freedom. So when we were tricked and told her that we were going to get our freedom if we leave, or keep our freedom, not get our freedom. So that's a misnomer. People think that we traded one to get another. We were always free. So let that first be known. Is that when we agreed to leave to maintain that freedom to go to Oklahoma, and when we were in Oklahoma for the 9 years that we were there, we saw that the government was not going to adhere to its promises. So since John Horse being John Horse and the community being the community, we saw the writing on the wall. This isn't going to work. So let's continue to maintain our freedom. And when Wildcat came up with the idea to go to Mexico, it seems feasible. Let's go. Let's continue our freedom. So that's what we did. And we packed up our community, our family, those who wanted to go, those who were able to go, and we left. Now the numbers are, I don't know. People get around this 300 number. I don't know. It's special maybe, but who knows? It could be 300. It could be more or less. It's an okay round number. But the sheer fact that those 300 people agreed to get on the road and go with each other was pivotal, because it could have just been John Horse and Wannah and her kids and his wife. Could have just been them, but it wasn't. The whole community and his family, when you talk about family and extended family, came together. And they said, yes, we're going to maintain our freedom. Let's go. And that's how we ended up in Mexico in 1852. So 1849 when we left Oklahoma. 1852 is when we got into Nacimiento, but 1850 when we got actually into Mexico. So once we got into Mexico, we had a little, of course, it's slavery time, and people are still trying to come after us because they, for whatever reason, think that we should be slaves. But we're adamant. We're going to keep our freedom. You're not going to take it from us. And so we maintain that, and dealing with the government, the Mexican government said, we need you to get in a little further into Mexico so we can maintain that border. And that's when we got Nacimiento, granted to live in Nacimiento.
Wow, that's amazing. Oklahoma, you hear about Black Wall Street, growing up, Trail of Tears, and from getting older, like I realized, hold on, these same people could be, indigenous to this very land as well. Do you think that people skip over that part of Black people, so-called Black people, just to end up in Tulsa, Oklahoma sometimes?
I think so. Well, one, because for us, the skin tone and you're talking about complexion.
Right.
For us in our community, we don't do color and complexion. We do community and culture. So we're not looking at what your color is or whatnot. It's more, are you a part of our community?
Right.
And that's what we hold on to. So I guess when we got into Oklahoma, it wasn't like, oh, we're Black people in Oklahoma. Our skin tone is Black. No, we're Seminoles in Oklahoma, still maintaining our culture, still maintaining our community. And again, America being America wants to stay on the complexion and the color. But the significance of that, I guess that spirit, I guess you want to say, is it lingers. It's still there. It was there when we were there. That just maintaining that spirit of freedom. I'm free, regardless of my complexion or color that you see. I'm staying on my culture and my community road.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yes.
In school, we would hear stories about Harriet Tubman, of course, Nat Turner barely. But then John Horse, you're talking about somebody who led the largest enslaved revolt, what they try to say in history. Why do you think John Horse's story is whispered, but other stories are always spoken out loud?
Well, one, because we're successful. Anytime we're successful, anytime any person other than a white person is successful, the story has to be, whispered or deemed down or dumbed down. But because we are, in their minds, Black skinned, that we were successful. They can't have that. You can't have that that we were successful against you. And then the sheer amount of people. You see, that's the key, is the number of people that went and had maintained their freedom. If it was just John Horse and Wildcat, we wouldn't even be talking today, right? It's the sheer amount of people. 300 plus people that they deem were to be not free, but maintain their freedom. Yeah.
How is that, to be deemed not free but still maintain their freedom? That's a contradiction with
right. I think it's comical because one, how dare you to decide whether I'm free or not free when I was already free. I'm already free. That to us was a misnomer. That's right. Like, you're not going to come in and change our way of life just because you think you can. And we've proved it. When we're together, we're together. That's right. Seminal Wars 1, 2, and 3. When we're divided, we show that we can still do stuff when we're divided. We ended up in Mexico. We're Texas Indian Scouts. Our history just keeps going going.
That's right. Seminole Wars, the second Seminole War. Is it true that one was ended because of the death of John Horse's wife, or is that untrue?
See, I don't see in documents that could be the pinpoint thing, because again, there's so many moving pieces going on in a war. Can you say that one single event? Is it? I don't know that it can be. And now the scholars may differ, but to us in the family, the war didn't necessarily end. We agreed. We came to an agreement. You gave us a proposition. We thought it over and we
Mm-hmm.
agreed.
Mm-hmm.
You agreed that if we leave, we'll continue to maintain our freedom and we'll get land.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wasn't what you intended. You told that lie to us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we left, you made sure that we won't get our freedom, or you'll try to take our freedom and we won't get land.
That's right.
So us being honorable people, did the right thing in the agreement,
Mm-hmm.
to adhere to the treaty, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then we trusted the government to honor their word,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Yeah. As usual. Huh? Yes, ma'am. Reading the stories, doing research, why, when I see white historians mostly, that they refer to Seminoles such as John Horse, your family, as black Seminoles and not just Seminoles? Why is it always this difference being made between black and then, or black Seminoles and then the regular Seminoles? Why is that always such a thing?
I think it's just because that's how we've been conditioned. You
Right.
know, we're conditioned that the color is the most important component.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see us, even though we have variety of colors,
Right.
the one thing that when they look at John Horse, if that picture is actually accurate of
Mm-hmm.
him, that his skin tone is a darker skin tone.
Right.
That's why they do it, black. And then now, as time has gone on, we have, I don't know, got this sense of that black is an empowering thing. So we have to make sure we put that first because,
Right.
you know, being black is the foundation or the number one word. That's not just white historians, it's black historians as well. And to me, I think there's this agenda, because if I can separate you from the truth, your indigenous roots, then I can justify what I did to you. That's in my opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
And so as long as I can keep you black, and in America being a slave country,
Yep.
then I can say, oh well, I didn't have any, you know, loyalties to you. You don't have any rights. You didn't have any rights to the land. When that's again a misnomer,
Mm-hmm.
because Seminole, the word itself, is mixed. It's the mixture of the three groups: indigenous, runaway slave, if you speak, but free black people. And see, they say that really small. It's like a little small print. That
They
free
don't want you to
black
know that
people,
part,
right?
right?
that little, and they fade it out there. That free part, and
Yes, ma'am.
I'm like, that's the whole key. These three groups, all same freedom, right? Indigenous is free, free black people's free, and then escaped slaves were what? Seeking freedom.
That's right.
Free.
Yes.
So why do we need or have that I don't know what to call it, to put that black on there, or their need
Yeah.
is again to separate us from what is truly ours. But we as the community, it's not the color, it's culture and community. And that's what we stick on, that's what we stay on, that's what we'll die on. Culture and community, that's who we are.
That's great. Being free during those times, I could only imagine all the things that John Horse and his people had to go through, your people. How fierce of a warrior was John Horse and also your people as well?
Oh, we were very fierce. Like I said, us maintaining our freedom. We had one skirmish, as we would call, when we went to Mexico. The Texas Rangers, everybody knows about them, right? Yeah, you'll hear that.
Baseball team as well. Turn that into.
Right. But there's a little known story is when they tried to come get us in the 1800s, 1850s, to get us from Mexico, that they got their butts whipped and, you know, tails sent packing. But the story is not told that way in their history books. The story is told that the Mexican army, you know, came in and there was just too many numbers for them to come get us, or they would have gotten us. No. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, we are fierce fighting people now, and if we've proven it. We've proven it in the Seminal Wars. And you thought we just forgot those skills when we went to Oklahoma? No, those skills kept us free when we went to Mexico, and the Mexican government recognizes our skills and put us to work as the first border patrol.
Wow.
You know, and people, you know, it today is, you know, it's more border patrol on this side, but we were the first border patrol. So, and then when we became scouts in the 1800s, our regiment is known to not lose a man in their history. In the 1870 to 1914, not one person was lost during battle.
Wow.
Now we've had deaths because people, different diseases and whatnot, but no one was lost in battle. And we have 4 Medal of Honor recipients in that group. The largest in one single group, 4. So I think we can prove that we were able to fight.
Hey, it speaks for itself.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Speaking about fights, battles, and wars, you know, we hear about the Civil War, American Revolution, but not about the Seminole Wars. What occurred during the Seminole Wars? What happened during that time?
Well, a lot of battles happened during that time. Again, you got the Okeechobee battle with Taylor. General Taylor, I'm sorry, which became president. Then you got the Waxahachie battlefield, and which is, I think, so overlooked because it was only a 2-hour battle.
Wow.
It's 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours in your lifetime.
Wow.
You know, 2 hours, and the significance in that was the sheer amount of opposition. It was like maybe 15, again, estimated numbers, 1,500 plus Army soldiers against 200 or less Seminoles, and mostly of those were women and children.
Wow.
And the significance of that is that my grandmother, again, is not Wannah, she was not there. See, in our community, we have lots of grandparents that are in this Seminole history. And my Bowlegs, my Payne grandparents were there. One of my grandmothers was 6 years old at Waxahachie battlefield on the ground with her parents, and her brothers and sisters, right, were there. And her future husband there as a child at that battle. And when I went there, it's in Fort Jupiter, it's in Jupiter, Florida. I went there this year, January, to the 185th Seminole reunion. It was so amazing because when you go home, so to speak, when you go put your feet where your ancestors' feet were, it's a powerful moment. Powerful moment. And when I sat there and I knew, because I know our history, that my grandparents were there, the goosebumps, you know, are so significant. So I said, no, we got to go back and tell our relatives, our family, come here, experience this, see how, if this 2-hour battle went a different way, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
That's heavy. Yes, ma'am.
I would not be sitting here.
Yes, ma'am. From seeing stories being told in documentaries, whether it could be YouTube, social media, what are some missing links in the story of John Horse, Wannah, and your family as a whole?
I think the missing link is that, one, the indigenous part needs to really be, I guess, combined. You know, don't overlook it just because when you think Indian or you think indigenous or whatever term you want, that it has to be this idea or this photograph. Right. Indigenous is indigenous to the community, regardless of your color. And I think once we say that we're indigenous or we're part of that indigenous group, that somehow we're saying we're not black. But that's not what we're saying, you know. And then when we're in Nacimiento, Mexico, when we're in Mexico, if we're saying you were born in Mexico, somehow I'm not black. Right. Like, it's not true. Yeah. So those cultures and those communities that we're a part of needs to be more, you know, talked about, because if you keep just saying black, that's one dimensional. And we're not. We're very layered. We're very complex people and have so many different aspects in our culture that were significant. But if you just lay on to just one part, black, then you're losing everything to me is makes our community and our culture special.
Yes, ma'am. Andrew Jackson, Indian Removal Act, and the laws, all of those things. What factors did those things play in the lives of John Horse and for Wannah as well, and your people?
Well, the significant thing was the loss of property, right? Our loss of property, because one, our freedom in our minds was never an issue. Like, we weren't going to lose it. That we were going to maintain that.
Right.
But if we had to move, because that's a part of our culture, they've moved in Florida time and time again. It's okay, we can move, but our freedom we were not going to give up. So when we agreed to their terms, and then they did not adhere to their part of the bargain, and we lost our community property. That is the most significant thing. And over time, and in John Horse's own words, again, he's the one speaking for the people, but the sentiment is the same. The people wanted their home life, just, like anyone. You want to just be able to live in your own home, with your freedom, and do your own life without anyone, trying to come against you. That's all you wanted.
Yes, ma'am.
And we lost that once we moved or removed to Oklahoma. And we found that we regained that when we went to Mexico, because we have the land, we have the community there, that we were, reunited with the land.
Yes, ma'am.
But the longing for the loss of Florida lands, our homelands, never went away.
Wow.
Never went away. And so that was always the sentiment. I want to be back in my homeland of Florida. But that never happened. Never happened for my grandmother. It never happened for John Horse. In anyone in the community, really. You didn't come back. You didn't come back to Florida. And I think that was their main disappointment, that they weren't able to come back to the land.
Wow. You living in Florida right now, what sense of pride are you feeling, if you feel any sense of pride of being back in Florida right now?
Well, I feel elated
ma'am.
because I was brought here. I didn't have any inclination that I would be in Florida.
Wow.
None whatsoever. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Wow. Okay.
And I was not thinking of Florida in any way. But my path has been ordained for me. And I was meant to come here to Florida. And every step in my life brought me here. And that's when I came here, it was, again, you are ordained. And I'm not the only one. My cousins are here. They're Payne family lines. Again, we're here. We've been brought here to Florida because our ancestors want us here. And they want us to continue to understand what has happened in our history. And we are the redemption or reclaiming, so to speak. And that's what I feel like I've done. I have come full circle for Wannah to come back here. And like it gives me goosebumps, because like what else can you do to honor the ancestors as to go back to the land where they were and live a great life, right? Like that's what you should do.
Yes, ma'am. The Paynes and the bow legs, what impact have they had on you of being part of that family lineage as well?
It's so funny. They're all equal, I guess you could say, because they all have the same spirit, that same resistance, that same love for freedom. And it's not just them, it's every layer. The Vasquez line, like I said, that's not a Seminole line. My grandfather, I'm not gonna say great because I'll tell you, I'll say grandfather. So he wanted freedom too, but he came as a kid to Mexico. He's a 10-year-old kid coming to Mexico. There's no inclination like a 10-year-old, I'm gonna go get freedom. He didn't have that intention. He was 10 years old, an orphan, and ended up in Mexico because of many different events. And it's a long story, so I won't go into it here. But he ended up uniting or coming with the Seminole tribe there in Nacimiento,
Yeah.
marrying into the family there, and having 13 kids
Wow.
who all intermarried with, again, all the Seminole tribe. So when you go to Nacimiento, there's 95% chance that you are a descendant in some way from the Vasquez family. You are related to us.
That's amazing. Yes, man. Growing up, what was life like for John Horse and for Wannah as well, growing up?
Growing up in Florida?
Yes, ma'am.
It was free. You hear the stories about John Horse being a trickster, right? And I think which is so interesting is that they keep this slave connotation. If you buy into that connotation, the slave that they were slave, how can you be trickster? Like you have this constant fear.
He would get in trouble.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
So why would he get out here when he knows
right.
you know you're going to get in trouble?
Great observation.
Right. But why would he do that? That makes no sense. And so the sense to me, and again, the family, just the history and feeling the vibes of my family, there was no fear. We didn't have fear because we were free. So it's 1 + 1 = 2, but you're trying to push in and say, no, it's 5. No, the slavery and the threat of slavery or re-enslavement. I love that re-enslavement. How can you be re-enslaved when you were never enslaved?
Yes, ma'am.
But never. So that I think they're in the way I feel it and the way our community is that they were free and they lived a uncomplicated life, just living on the land. Living day to day, building, doing their crops, doing the traditions that we do as Indigenous people.
Yes, ma'am. During this time, we have cell phones, technologies everywhere, living on the land. It's crazy now because it's like the average man, if you ask them to create something in the woods, he wouldn't be able to build a home or start a fire, any of those things. How can we get back to reconnecting, if you will, with the land again?
Oh man, I don't know if we'll be able to.
It takes a while.
The technology is hard to put it down. That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, for us in our community, it's not as difficult because we haven't left it.
That's good. Yeah.
So because we're still maintaining that. I guess the ones that are on the outer edge, because we're all over the world now, and for me, which is interesting, the growing up in Vegas, there's no farms like that. You're not going to see a farm there.
Yes, ma'am.
But my path, my life has introduced me to a man who is he calls himself a farm boy, and country boy.
Yes, ma'am.
And his mother, his family line, they plant crops, and I'm looking at them, and it's interesting to see, but me and my aura, I guess that Vegas upbringing, I'm not getting out there. I'm not gonna do it.
Yes, ma'am.
I do my shopping, the old-fashioned way at the grocery store. That's how I do it.
Yes, ma'am. I get it. Growing up, what was life like being in Vegas, but then in that same breath knowing the beautiful long line of great people that you came from? What was that like for you growing up?
For me, it was, I think it was just seamless because it's the same. When you're in Vegas, it's glitz and glam, and you're seeing all of these things that you could be, right? Because that's the moniker.
Right.
But same way what we did. The maintaining of the freedom, of our freedom, is the same as if you feel when you get into the Vegas casino and you hear on all the lights and the little chingling, and you're like, oh, I got it. I'm excited. That's the same spirit we had in Nacimiento and Brackettville, Texas. And then when you go to these communities now, they would call, small towns. And when you're in a small town, there's not a lot of economic stimulus like Vegas. Like when you go to Vegas, you're just dripping in money, right? When you go to Brackettville, there's no money dripping. Brackettville, there's no money dripping there.
Gotcha.
And when you go to Nacimiento, it's the same. But that's not, we're not, the riches aren't in money. It's not monetary. The riches is in the people,
Yes, ma'am.
the culture, the spirit that got us there. Now that you cannot pay for. That's not a lottery win you're going to get, and you're not getting it at the casino.
Yes, ma'am. John Horse, he was fearless. Your family, your grandmother, Wannah, everybody. How did your people, I would say, maintain that sense of being fearless all the way up to you today?
I think it's just inbred in us. That is born through and through. Through and through. That was who we are, who we were then, who we are today, who our children are going to continue to be, because that's what we instill. I still instill that into my children and my grandchildren especially, and I can see it in them because, our grandchildren, they put you through. But that's the stock they came in on. Yes, so I think that's just in our blood. That's who we are. That's who we always will be, have been. So.
Yes, ma'am. John Horse, what adversities and opposition did he and his people face from going to Oklahoma and then going down to Texas or to Mexico as well?
The same adversities is the culture. When the Seminal Wars hit, there was this, I guess it's we call it a separation. And to me is in community. Like I said, we keep talking community and culture. Now, when they introduced the color and the complexion, because of money, see, that's the key, the money. Right. That money part started separating us. Now, what's interesting in the family is that there's no word in the Indigenous language for cousin. Right?
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. So you got all these other words, mother, brother, sister, father, whatever. But cousin is not a word. And when you get in these cousin relationships, there's a distance that you will feel okay that I can do bad stuff. And so when that colorism came in and me and you could be cousins and I'm fairer than you, now I'm going to get money for you. That moral turpitude is out the door.
Right.
And that's why I feel like that's what happened when we were removed. It was the cousin relationships that started getting influenced by money. And once I can get my money, I could care less about my cousins. For me in the community, my sole purpose is to put us cousins together, because we're the ones who's got to fix it. The cousins relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
And me and my cousins, even some that didn't know we were cousins, some that know we were cousins, when we all have very, very opinionated, thing. But we are the ones. I tell my cousins that we are the generation from 65 to 40. This generation is the one that's got to fix it. If we don't fix it here, it's lost.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have the information. We have the financial ability.
That's right.
We have the education.
That's right.
To do it. That's us. We have the trifecta.
That's right.
And if we don't get it together, then it's gonna be gone.
Yes, ma'am.
And our cousins, my cousins, we all have the same passion to get the history together, the truth of our history.
That's right. Colorism, what impact has that had on our psyche, somewhat, of us thinking, to your point earlier, always into this black and white, or to, oh, she's lighter than me, or I'm darker than her? How do we kind of break that chain somewhat, do you think?
Oh, I don't. It's the breaking of the chain to me is to get back to the family, to know that we're family. Because when you're a family, you treat each other differently. When you know your family, you believe in that family. But also at the same token, if you're that family member who has betrayed or done something bad, you become, it's that standoffish. And that way we can do those layers. And if the way that we break that, again, is to unite again around the family. And cousins, again, that cousin relationship has to change. We have to start understanding and realizing that cousins are just as close to you as family as anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
cousins to get back to family.
Mm-hmm. During those times of moving and traveling from state to state, during those times, how was that on Wannah's life as well while she was with John Horse, if she was during those times?
Oh, she was there the
Yes,
whole
ma'am.
time, which is interesting.
Mhm.
That there's, it was very difficult for her to leave Oklahoma,
Mhm.
and it's a lesser known fact. Or if you read in our history, you'll know that she lost 2 of her children.
Wow.
And they were taken. They were taken into slavery and never heard from again.
Mhm.
And for her to leave Oklahoma,
Mm.
knowing that she won't be able to have her 2 children
Mm.
with her,
Mhm.
that's very powerful emotions
Mhm.
to leave, and she had to deal with that,
Mhm.
and to take her remaining children with her, and to live out her life in Mexico
Wow.
without them,
Mhm.
with no possibility of seeing them again.
Mhm.
And to me, I mean, I don't, as a mother, I mean, leaving your child to
Mhm.
continue and live your life,
Mhm.
that's unheard of. But you
Mhm.
have other children you have to take care of, to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
sure that they're free, that they
Mhm.
don't fall into the same plight. So for her, it's just a wound that never healed.
Mhm.
She lost them. She
Mhm.
lost in the children that she had to maintain them.
Mhm.
She maintained those children, and when they came to be scouts in the 1870s later on, she was there with them
Mm.
in Texas.
Mhm.
And then she lost another son
Wow.
to a gun battle
Wow.
that was intended for her brother,
Mhm.
but ended up hitting her son
My goodness.
and killing
Wow.
him.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she had to live through that
Mhm.
and later in life.
Mhm.
So now she's lost 3
Mm.
kids.
Mm. Very strong
Yeah.
woman.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Oh yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Denys, you've been great. In closing, how would you define the legacies of John Horse and also of Wannah, of your people? How would you define their legacies?
Their legacy would be resilience. We
Mm.
are resilient people.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I would say family. The key is family.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the fighting.
Mm.
All those books are about the fighting.
Yes,
All the
ma'am.
papers, all of the scholars, they talk about the fighting. Why? The
Mm.
freedom? No. It was about family. Family is the key.
Mm-hmm.
They fought for each other.
Mm.
They fought for themselves. They fought for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we're family.
Mm.
And that's the main key.
Mm-hmm.
That I would say. It's family that's family that kept us. Family is going to keep us,
That's
and
right.
family is going to continue on. And we got to get back to knowing that the family is the key.
That's right. Ms. Denys, thank you so much for your time, sharing your story. I know that you and your family are very protective of this, so I appreciate you sharing that with us as well. Thank you.
You
Appreciate you. You guys make sure to tap in, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all again for watching another episode. Blessed be your host, Caleb Smith. Until next time, peace.
are.